Hello everyone, it's Alex, Ukrainian civilian. Let me start this video with the result of my call for donations. I have received only one donation and from a person that asked to support locals, and I transferred a little bit more than $200 to the local volunteer that support internal refugees and low-income people. I will later record a short video report about this, but I will never try to call for donations more here in my YouTube videos. Today I'm going to discuss one major topic: the upcoming liberation of Kherson and territories on the right bank of Dnipro River. As always, I will try to share my personal observations and my amateur point of view. Kherson counter-offensive operation. This topic already became quite controversial because of multiple loud announcements done by Ukrainian officials, like President Zelensky, Minister of Defense Reznikov, or Head of National Security Council Danilov. Some people here in Ukraine, of course, welcome those intentions. They are eager to accomplish them as soon as possible. While others, especially those who are in the opposition to the current government, accuse officials in the useless warnings for the hostile party. They forecast the discussions are already overheated in Ukrainian society. At the same time, Russians have fun of any hypothetical possibility to liberate Kherson from Russian troops, and Russian officials comment this danger quite miserably. I'd like to discuss my personal opinion because I do not expect quick results, and I'd like to explain you why. So let's start by talking about the difference in Russian and Ukrainian military approaches. It is vital to remember how Russians acted during the first two stages of their invasion in order to distinguish Russian and Ukrainian approaches. In the first stage of this invasion, from February to April, Russians tried to quickly suppress any resistance, move fast across the country, and take over the major Ukrainian cities by storm. The critical issues with their supply lines caused multiple casualties in front armored columns and rear supply groups. That was the main reason why Russians retreated from the north in April. It is important to not overestimate the heroism of Ukrainian defenders, because another important thing is the lack of proper intelligence about possible resistance of Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian society. When they understood that their blitzkrieg has no chance to succeed, they regrouped and narrowed down the front line to start the second stage of this war. Their goals were to capture Donetsk and Lugansk regions, destroy the most trained and experienced Ukrainian regiments, and sell this victory to the internal audience. I don't want again to describe the incredible advantage Russian artillery had during the second stage until we received and applied the Western help in June. Russians started to use a completely different tactic, basically the scorched earth one, and they not just used artillery to suppress Ukrainian position. They also almost destroyed Ukrainian cities like Popasna, Rubizhne, or Severodonetsk to the ground. The main resistance factor was the unbelievable fortitude of Ukrainian infantry that kept resisting any possible advance, and of course the arrival and successful use of HIMARS systems and Western howitzers helped to stop the further advance of Russian troops. I already told a lot about outrageous losses Ukrainians had in May and June, and it's important to pay the tribute to their sacrifice. So, long story short, it's obvious that Ukrainian armed forces cannot use Russian tactics I described above. Simply because we cannot afford to have huge losses among our soldiers, or we cannot inflict the same level of damage to cities and villages we want to liberate. That's why we have to adjust the tactics we used on the north of Ukraine to cut supply lines, decrease the fighting capacity, and slowly press Russian troops from cities and villages, without massive shelling, of course. And I don't think that Russians will easily retreat from the territories on the right bank of Dnipro River until their situation is completely desperate. And I want to discuss the Russian supply lines in details in this region. The best scenario for Ukraine is the famous Russian goodwill gesture, like they did in the north of Ukraine in April or on Snake Island in June, when they faced critical issues with supply. The biggest ally of Ukraine here is the nature. Dnipro is a quite wide river. It has from 300 meters to more than 1 kilometer of width in this particular area. It's worth to mention that there are only 3 bridges across Dnipro: Antonivsky, outer and railway bridges, and Novakakhovka Dam, 50 kilometers northern from Kherson, as you can see on your screens right now. So the sea transport, the air transport, all of them are vulnerable to Ukrainian artillery. The front line is quite close. That's why Russians use trucks to transport ammo, food, reserves in this region. Of course, that makes their supply lines even more vulnerable when Ukrainians started to attack those bridges. I don't want to stop on each particular attack, but I want to highlight one important thing. Ukrainian armed forces didn't destroy those bridges yet, not because of the lack of capacity. Our army, our commanders sent quite straightforward message: guys, you need to leave this area. But I don't believe that Russians will leave voluntarily this region, and that's why our army needs to continue their operation. So I wrote this scenario before the morning notification that the Antonivsky outer bridge is already damaged heavily. As you can see right now on your screen, the road surface is destroyed enough to secure only walking or using probably bicycles, I don't know, or bikes. And it's definitely not enough to supply any ammo or food by trucks. Also, local officials said that there is some damage done to the railway bridge across Dnipro, and right now Russians have only the only safe way to transport goods, the Novakakhovka Dam. So, this being said, I want to emphasize that Ukrainians, I suppose, plan to continue destroying the transportation ways in order to turn the local Russian group into hostages, because I cannot even imagine how difficult it would be to evacuate troops under constant Ukrainian artillery fire. And we can only observe the further moves of Ukrainians in order to understand how the counteroffensive operation will go. The last days showed that Russians don't plan to quickly move out of these territories on the right bank on Dnipro. Before the Antonivsky Bridge was damaged enough, they kept sending more regiments, more tanks, more artillery. And of course, it's bad from one hand, because basically a Ukrainian armed force would need to face more troops in this particular area. From another hand, Russia doesn't use fresh reserves. Russians send regiments from other frontline areas, for example Donetsk or Zaporizhia, and it helps Ukrainians to apply their corrosion tactic. When armed forces of Ukraine perform limited attacks on some particular areas in order to loosen the balance in Russian defense, then they change the focus and repeat again and again. It helps to inflict a lot of damage in the order of Russians. So I'd like to conclude that I don't expect any quick successes. I don't expect immediate gains or spontaneous and rapid attacks of Ukrainian armored columns. It will take time. I think that the first significant gains would be achieved by the middle of August, while the complete liberation of the territories might take up to October, for instance. But this will happen, and this will, of course, be a huge shock for both Russian society and Russian army, because it will completely ruin the faith in unconditional victory in this war. I cannot predict, let's say, multiple military or political scenarios that we will face soon, but it's the first step to the Ukrainian victory in this war. Of course, with the help of West, we never forget about our friends, and of course, most of Ukrainians continue to help Ukrainian troops in their path, and I'm not an exclusion. So, thank you for watching this video. I continue encouraging you to donate to verified groups like the Charity Foundation of Sergei Prytula, the Foundation Come Back Alive, or small volunteers you know personally. And of course, I encourage you to stay tuned. I will try to answer all of your questions under this video. I promise to use suggestions if you want to share any with me, and I will continue creating some content because it's important for me and for my audience. I hope so, at least. So thank you so much. Slava Ukraini, Героям слава!